I remember when I first started off my coaching business, I was getting podcast features or going on podcasts to kind of share about what I do and the importance of healing trauma, self-improvement, all of that. And I reached out to this one podcast that was up and coming. It was rather new, and it was run by two brothers. And so I jumped on. They agreed to have me on. I jumped on the recording. We talked about, healing trauma, why trauma is not something commonly spoken about, how trauma can affect your marriage. It was probably one of the best podcast episodes I've ever recorded. I was in my element. I was articulating things very well. I felt like I had such value to share with the audience. So I was super excited, and they told me they would let me know when the podcast episode was going to feature. They would send the link to me. I was going to be able to share it. It was going to be a great opportunity for people to, for the first time ever, really get to know on a deeper level why I'm so passionate about healing trauma and God-conscious self-improvement. And I was excited until I got a message from them, which essentially went along the lines of, we were kind of talking and we decided it wasn't the best idea after speaking to some mentors to share the podcast episode. And now you can imagine, I was so upset. Maybe not so. I was so disappointed. And it was a 2-hour episode. There was so much value. At the very least, I wish I would have had the recording to be able to share my bits. But I felt defeated in that moment. And anyone who starts a business knows how hard it is to get yourself off the ground. And there's a huge part of it where people have to know who you are. No one's going to trust you, no matter how great your offer is or how much value you have to add to people's lives. Nobody's going to trust you if they don't know you. And then I had this thought, and it was, you know what? If Allah didn't want for this to happen, it is for the better. And I know that if this is good for me, if succeeding in my coaching is good for me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open doors that I wouldn't even imagine. I'm not going to even fret about it. And this is why Tawakkul is so important. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. If you are new here, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Hannah. I am a PA who practices medicine. I'm a trauma coach and a high-impact self-improvement coach for Muslim women. I started this YouTube channel out of a desire to make healing, God-conscious healing, and God-conscious self-improvement accessible for every Muslim. And so today's topic goes right in line with that. And it is on the topic of how do we actually practice tawakkul in our daily lives. I feel like tawakkul is one of those things that we hear a lot about in theory, but we don't talk about in practice. And this is probably one of the things that frustrates me the most in the way Islamic education is given. We hear about things in a very metaphorical sense, but it's not too often that it's taught in the sense of how can we actually make this work for us in our lives. And tawakkul is a very, very practical concept. Let's talk about it. To help teach you guys this concept, I have an acronym, which I will throw up on the screen to break this down into a 3-step process. So let's start with the M, which stands for mindset. The story that I told you guys in the very beginning of the video is an example of what mindset shift we have to make in order to truly practice tawakkul. The Prophet ﷺ already articulated this mindset shift way better than I can through this hadith, which I will pop up on the screen. And forgive me for not saying it exactly correctly, but I am going to just iterate it in a way that will deliver the idea. The Prophet ﷺ essentially said that how strange is the affair of the believer, because everything is good for him or her, and that is not the case except for the believer. When he or she is given good in their lives, they're grateful, and that is good for him or her. And when he or she is tested or faces difficulty, they are patient, and that is good for them. And again, this is not the case for anyone but a believer. The tawakkul mindset is a mindset that makes you undefeatable. No, seriously, it makes you undefeatable because nothing can knock you off the path to Allah if you truly, truly believe that even when I'm feeling sad, even when I'm feeling down, even when things aren't going my way, I am going to remain steadfast and I'm still going to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a certain level of resilience that only a true believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can have. And resilience is so important. Resilience is the quality that makes the difference between who thrives in the challenges of their lives versus who is broken. So if you want to harness tawakkul, you have to make this mindset shift. You have to step out of the complaining, step out of the woe is me, step out of the why is this happening or this always happens to me, and step into the, what is Allah trying to teach me through this? Step into the, how much reward, subhanAllah, am I getting through this? Step into the, at the end of the day, the akhirah is what I'm aiming for. So when my dunya isn't feeling like the most magical place on earth, it's because it's not. And that'll change everything for you. Number 2 is A, which stands for action. There's another beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which again, I will pop up on the screen, where the Prophet ﷺ essentially says that if we were to trust in Allah like the birds trust in Allah, then that would be sufficient for us, right? The birds go out in the morning hungry and they come back to their nest later fed. Right. There's another really common hadith that we often hear about, probably the most commonly referenced hadith when we talk about tawakkul, which is the hadith regarding tying your camel. The man comes to the Prophet ﷺ, he has a camel, and he says to the Prophet, "Oh, Messenger of Allah, should I tie my camel or should I trust in Allah?" I.e., what usually happens if you don't tie a camel, you think of tying the camel like parking a car, right? The camel's going to wander away and eventually it'll get far enough and someone either might take it or you'll just lose to the camel in the desert and not be able to find it. And camels were very expensive. And also it was a means of his transportation, certainly, and a means of how he probably made money. So the loss of that camel would be a lot. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, "Trust in Allah and tie your camel." You want another translation for that? Don't be stupid. Don't be dumb. Of course, do the action that you need to do in order to achieve the results that you want. And ultimately, what is going to allow for those results to come to is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willing that to happen. But what are we saying when we withhold the action and we treat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like he's some genie and we don't have to put any effort in? It doesn't make sense. The birds trust in Allah, but they go out and they seek their food. They fly around, they put in the effort, they put in the time, and they achieve the results. This is just how the world works, and you can see anyone who's put in the time and effort into something that is important to them has an understanding of this concept. And I'm going to give a few examples for you. For someone like me or any of you guys who might have a side hustle business, you know that you're not going to get people to invest in your services or your products without effort from you. You have to put in effort to make sure that service or product is impeccable. You have to put in effort to create the marketing campaigns or the post or do the digital marketing to actually let people know what you do, why it's valuable, how it can change your life. You have to follow up on the leads that come from that. You have to get testimonials. It takes time and action. I'll give you another example. I'm someone who practices medicine. This is one thing that was difficult to navigate with patients. Let's say you have a diagnosis of diabetes or actually pre-diabetes, because most of you guys are on the age, probably don't have full-blown diabetes yet, but your diagnosis is pre-diabetic. What are you going to do? Just hear that diagnosis, sit around and be like, oh, well, right? And then let your vessels in your heart, be damaged, increase the risk of stroke, increase the risk of blindness and losing your foot. Is that what you're going to do? No, if you truly have tawakkul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are going to recognize type 2 diabetes is extremely manageable. And there are things that you can do very intentionally to regulate your blood sugar and actually completely put your diabetes in remission. And that looks like a bunch of things. It looks like cutting carbs, simple carbs especially. It might look like for a short period of time for those who are really dedicated, getting on a medication to help regulate your blood sugar. It looks like getting into weight training and fitness. So you're burning the blood sugar, the sugar that is in your blood, and allowing the muscles to uptake it and put it to use. It looks like doing intermittent fasting. I'm giving you guys, by the way, the guides to how to put diabetes in pre-diabetes or diabetes into remission naturally, but make sure you are doing this with your medical provider. That's tawakkul, when you put in the action. To my subscribers here who are depressed, been there. I know exactly how you feel. It is a miserable experience. There's a lot of tawakkul that is required to get yourself out of that, and a lot of action has to happen. You have to be willing to do the things that you know are going to help bolster your mental health, are going to help lift your serotonin, it's going to help increase the dopamine in your brain so that you can heal your depression. What does that look like? That looks like making sure that you're taking care of your basic needs. You're eating, you're drinking water, you're showering, even when you don't feel like that. It looks like making sure you're not neglecting your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your depression should never get in the way of your salah. It looks like booking the session with a therapist or a coach who's actually trained in mental health who can help you through that. It might look like journaling. It looks like being around people and socializing, because we need connection to other people as human beings. There's actually a chemical called tachykinin that we have as humans, that this chemical is directly related to how much we socialize and interact with people. And we are negatively impacted, and it causes a lot of stress and strain on our nervous system when we are isolating ourselves from people. And it looks like doing that over and over and over again, even when you don't have the motivation, even when you're tired, even when you feel, God, what's the point? That's Tawakkul. And the last point of Tawakkul is P for prioritize. You're not always going to see the results right away. You might have heard the concept 1% every day. Yes, you can put in the effort over weeks and months and a lot of time in the progress you will see if you're able to evaluate properly. But oftentimes the big result that we're all looking for doesn't come immediately. And so in that time, we have to make sure that we're practicing Tawakkul and prioritizing what is important that time. The most important thing above all, a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So are you still praying? Are you making dua? Are you asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you in this time? Are you contemplating and reflecting how this test is shaping you into a better Muslim? Are you choosing who you want to be? Because think about it this way, right? At the end of the day, right, that test eventually is going to go away. Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to lift the difficulty altogether. However He does it, He tells us, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Ease comes after hardship. You know that at one point that test is going to be gone. How do you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see you after that test is over? That right there is what's in your control. You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see you as the Muslim that when this person was tested, all right, Surah Al-Hajj, I believe it describes this. I'll try to pop up the verse on the screen, but that there are people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on an edge, right? Things are going well, they're happy, they're excited, they're loving it. But when they are tested, then they're miserable. They are angry at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They stop worshiping. They withhold Allah's right as if it's going to hurt them. They get mad at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you want to be that person? Or do you want to be the person that at the end Allah looks in and is like, that servant of mine used her pain or his pain, his trial, her trial to get closer to me. They did more dua. They did more salah. They woke up for tahajjud. They fasted more. They read more Quran. They were good to people. They were more charitable. That's who they are in hardship. Imagine what they're going to be like in Eid. You get to decide. Prioritize your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also prioritize gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that if we are grateful to Him, He will increase us. He will increase us in rizq. And gratitude, just as a daily practice, is so powerful, subhanAllah, so powerful, because it actually has been researched and shown that a daily gratitude practice helps decrease depressive symptoms and increased symptoms of well-being and happiness. That's a miracle of the Quran, subhanAllah. Allah already told us this. Now you have the 3-step process for how to practice tawakkul in your lives. And I hope you guys actually take these tips and put them into action in your lives. Work on the mindset shift. Start putting in the time and the effort towards whatever you need to get to the other side of this test. And make sure that ultimately you are prioritizing your relationship with Allah. And before I close out, this is an exciting official announcement to any of my Muslimas who are watching this. My trauma group coaching program is finally open. I'm finally taking applicants. The waiting list had been going on for months, but the next cohort or group is going to be starting very soon, inshallah. So if you are a Muslim woman who is ready to heal her trauma, you're ready to do it with my support and the support of incredible Muslim women around you, do not hesitate to go to the link in my description, click it, look at all the information, and apply for the program, inshallah, and book your discovery call. And for the rest of you who are not actually dealing with trauma, but really want to work on God-conscious self-improvement, you want the mindset shifts that I'm talking about, you want to learn how to actually build an actionable plan that gets you where you want to be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your dunya affairs and your akhirah affairs, I offer one-on-one coaching. There are a few spots left. The link is in the description as well. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please comment, share, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.